What's going on, everybody? It's Big T with GreenWallSt.com, back with another trading video, and today we're going to be talking about losses. Everybody loves talking about winners, how much they made on this, how much they made on that. Not a lot of people like to talk about or think about losers, but the fact is, trading is full of losses all of the time. It's not a game that you can perfect in that way, in which you just never take a loss. It's about managing your risk and making sure your losers are, much smaller than your winners. But along your trading journey, I guarantee you will run into some outsized losses, regardless of how it happened or why it happened. I've got many stories over the years of how I've lost, some abnormal amounts of money in very abnormal black swan type events. And one of those events happened last week, and I took my biggest loss of the year on Kodak stock, which a lot of you probably saw the price action or traded it, maybe made money on it. But the reason for the loss isn't that important. That's really a story for another video. But how do you, once you have that big loss, and when I say big, it's really relative depending on what your average winning day is. If your average winning day is $100, then $1,000 loss is going to be significant. And if your average winning day is $1,000, then that $10,000 loss is going to be significant. Anything that wipes out multiple weeks of wins, it can have a psychological effect. So how do you snap back from that, and how do you get yourself back on the path as quickly as possible? That's what we're going to talk about today. Because again, along your journey, you're going to have big losses. It happens. It happens to everybody, regardless of experience level. I know some very experienced guys who lost on Kodak, big money. So let's just dive into it. First things first, stop trading. Whenever you take a big loss like that, listen, even if you think that you are emotionally disconnected from the money, that sort of loss that wipes out weeks, months, maybe even a year of gains, it really takes its toll on you mentally. And a lot of people, their first instinct is to make it all back very quickly, make it all back on the next trade. So then, they'll be deep in the hole, but they'll think, okay, now I'll get revenge on this stock, and I'll size up, and they'll use, abnormal size that they never would normally be trading in order to try to make the loss back up very quickly. So if you take a step back for a few minutes, just walk away from the desk for at least 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just check in with yourself mentally and ask yourself, are you in a good position to trade mentally? Because your best trading is going to be done when you've got a clear head. You don't feel like you're chasing anything. You don't feel like you have to get anything back, and you can stay patient and just wait for, whatever setups you like to trade. But after you take a big loss like that, most people are not able to manage their emotions. So the number one thing you can do for the rest of that day is just not trade. When I took that loss on Kodak in the morning, I stayed around and I talked to the chat at GreenWallSt for the rest of the day, but I told them I'm not gonna trade anything for the rest of the day because I don't trust myself. I knew that I was just sitting there staring at the stock, and I wanted to trade it again and again in order to make that money back. But you need to, first things first, just walk away from the desk, shut off the computer if you have to. Definitely don't trade again for the rest of that day. Second thing you gotta do, and probably the hardest thing, is just come to terms with the fact that it happened and accept it. And the faster you can do that, the faster you'll be able to get back on the right path. But I think, if you are into trading for the money, and everybody's into it for the money, but if you're into it solely thinking about your profit loss and solely thinking about, getting a rent check or, going on a vacation or something like that, the market doesn't give a shit if you got rent coming up, or if you want to go on a vacation or buy a new car or whatever. The market doesn't care. So you've got to take a step back and just accept that you've lost weeks worth of work, and there's nothing you can do to change it. There's nothing you can do to get it back. And if you try to make it back very quickly, it's very likely you're going to make the hole even worse. Because as bad as it feels, you take that big loss, understand it could always be worse. And the quickest way to cut your account in half is trying to double it very quickly. So keep that in mind after you come back to the desk. Maybe you need to take multiple days off, but you really need to accept in your own mind, okay, you know what? The loss happened. I can go back, I can review the trade, I can learn from it and make sure I don't make those mistakes again. But you just have to accept that, if I'm gonna trade the next 30 years or 40 years, what's the next 2 weeks for me to really sit down at the desk, grind day in, day out, good trades, small size, and make back that loss in a couple of weeks as opposed to a couple of hours. So ever since that big Kodak loss that I took on Wednesday, I've had 5 green trading days in a row, and I'm slowly chipping my way back out of the hole, shoveling my way out. And that's really the way that you have to think about it. So once you've accepted it, you walked away from the desk, maybe you took a couple days off trading, or maybe it's the next day, you probably shouldn't even go back in full size. At this point, it's about getting your confidence back, because when you lose a large amount of money, it's very easy to think like, oh shit, am I just not good at this? Like, am I terrible? Or what? Am I cut out for this? Like, should I quit? I don't know what to do here. It's very likely that you're not a terrible trader, you just made a mistake, right? Trading has sets of rules, and it just so happens that money is the byproduct of good trading, and if you make a bad trading decision, then you lose money. And if you make a really bad trading decision, then you lose a lot of money. It doesn't mean you're a terrible trader. It doesn't mean necessarily that you should quit. It means that you made a mistake, and everybody makes mistakes. And the fastest way to get back to it is start to build your confidence back. So whenever I came back on Thursday, I sized down. So whereas you might normally be trading 5,000, 10,000 shares at a time, trade 1,000 shares at a time, trade 500 shares at a time, and just make sure you are trading well. And once you get 1, 2, 3, 10 trades under your belt that you're winning at, you'll understand like, oh shit, okay, I really do have this. And you can slowly start to size back and start to use your normal amount of shares with whatever you trade with. But that's only after you started to build some consistency back and started to get your confidence back a little bit. And once you do that, you're well on your way. I mean, at some point you've got to go back and you've got to review the bad trade, understand where the mistake was. Like, again, my reason for my Kodak loss, it doesn't really matter, but I went back and reviewed it and looked at the trade, my entries, my exits, and realized, okay, here was my mistake. Where I should have cut the loss here, I added instead, and that's where the mistake was. So now I don't make that mistake anymore. And I understand the repercussions of making bad decisions. But again, first things first, you take that big loss, just walk away from the screen. You're emotionally fucked up. You don't want to be trading for the rest of that day. Once you do come back, you've accepted the loss and you've accepted, maybe I've got to take the next month and dig myself out of this hole and not try to make it back all in the next day or the next hour, the next trade. Once you do come back to the screen, start with small size and really start to build your consistency back, build your confidence back up. You have to build yourself back mentally and emotionally. And then at that point, after you've, gotten 5, 10, 15 trades under your belt, you can start to slowly put your size back on. And before you know it, you're gonna be back out there trading just like you were before the big loss. And you'll make up that money and then some, and you'll be out of the hole. That's the idea, at least. So I know in 2020 markets are super volatile, a lot of people making a lot of money, but you got to understand there's always somebody on the other side of your trade, and whereas someone might have killed it on a certain day, somebody else might have gotten killed. So if you do have some people that that are trading, friends, whatever, make sure to check in and see where they're at emotionally. Talk to them, because trading is it's a tough gig, man. It's very tough. So got to make sure that people have their heads on straight whenever they're out there in the trenches trading day in, day out. So if you suffered some losses over the past couple of weeks, past couple of months, no, you are not alone. People of all experience levels take losses, and it's just it's a part of the game. It's really how quickly you can accept it, move on, and start to get back to your own normal. That's gonna dictate how fast you work yourself out of the hole. So hopefully that helps. I hope you guys are having a good year here in 2020. And thank you all for supporting the channel, supporting Green Wall Street. I do appreciate it. I will catch you all right back here in the next trading video. Peace out, everybody.